Hello everybody, let me take a drink of coffee first before we begin. I took off a couple of days without uploading anything new. I did do my live stream this weekend using a new streaming software that allows people to join us at a panel. And I have a big announcement this weekend, so make sure you catch that live stream. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Now, we all want the best output possible when we print our photographs. In other words, we want our printers, whether it is a simple printer like a EPSON P400, for instance, or the higher quality P600, or any of the Canon printers, or any of the EPSON, any printer that you have that is dedicated for photo printing, you want the very best output. So in order to achieve that, there are some calibrations that you need to consider doing. Now, on a less sophisticated printer like a Pro-100, and again, all of the EPSON printers that I mentioned, including the P800, by the way, there is no way for you to calibrate the printer itself so that it is brought to whatever level of accuracy the factory intended its output to be. See, these printers are mass produced and they do not output exactly the same. If you were to print a set of control patches and then measure them with a spectrophotometer, you will not get exactly the same results. You will not get the same readings out of every patch from different, say for instance, several P800 models. They would all output slightly different. Now, the difference between those families of printers, including the Pro-100 and some of the other Canon printers, something like this, that can be internally calibrated. That gives us an advantage over other printers in that we can bring this. I don't know how off this printer was out of the box. We really don't know that. But we can always bring it back to factory specs by performing its interior calibration or internal calibration. So what do you do? And I'm going to walk you through the steps that you need, because this is really about how to properly bring your printer to the correct output level out of the box. We're going to talk about this mostly and the higher models of this printer, including the new ones that are out. Yeah. You're going to go ahead and install the printer as shown in your installation chart. You're going to pop the print head in there. Hopefully it'll be recognized. Yes. All of the cartridges loaded. We're going to prime the ink lines, the internal dampers, and the print head, and then proceed to print a nozzle check. And that's the first thing that you need to do. The nozzle check looks like this. It's a little bit different than the Pro-1, Pro-10, Pro-100 nozzle check, which looks more like this. And we'll talk about this one in a second here. But anyway, this is what it looks like. And you're going to look at all of those little crosses and make sure nothing is missing. When you got 100% coverage on all 12 channels, you know that you are ready to proceed to the next step. And this is everything you need to do. We're going to get this printer outputting as accurately as possible. That is your goal. Everybody's complaining about slight color differences and maybe color balance problems or color cast on your prints. This is what you need to do from the very beginning. So once you do that, you're going to align the print head. And this is going to take 3 sheets of paper. It's undecipherable. I don't know what it's doing here, but internally there are sensors that will read this and make the proper adjustments so that the advance rate matches the width of the amount of ink that is being laid down. You cannot have an overlap or you cannot have a gap. It has to be perfectly synchronized, and that's what the head alignment procedure does for you. You will not have any banding. Okay, that's another subject altogether for another video. Pro-100, Pro-10, Pro-1 produces this type of nozzle check. And this one is perfect, but the previous one was not. I had a problem with the matte black ink cartridge. It was not flowing correctly, or I had a slight clog maybe because I hadn't printed with the matte black ink for quite a while. So what did I do? I went ahead and exchange all the cartridges, and produced a beautiful, perfect nozzle check. And that's what you got to do. You have to start with a perfect nozzle check before you proceed to the head alignment. Otherwise, the head alignment will fail on you. Okay, make sure your nozzle check is at 100%. Otherwise, again, like I said, the head alignment will fail. So then after that, we did an internal calibration. And as you can see, this is all it's printing. It's printing a set of patches from each of the colors. And then it's reading them to ensure that they have the correct density as intended by the factory engineers. If it does not, it makes an internal adjustment. Boom, you are done. After that, right off the bat, you are able to print a nearly perfect rendition of this image, simply letting the driver control color. This is Pro Luster paper. I chose Pro Luster paper on the paper choice, and I set my color / intensity manual adjustment matching tab, and then ICM or driver matching. Either one of those two will automatically link the correct ICC profile that lives inside my computer to print that chart with Pro Luster paper, resulting in a perfect result. Yeah, no pun intended. So, what about now I want to switch over to some other ink, and maybe switch over to some other types of papers. Well, if I stay with OEM ink, I can theoretically download whatever manufacturer's papers out there are available, because they were created using OEM inks. In other words, original inks. So since I am still on original inks, I can just simply use their profiles. But what if I want to maybe improve a little bit on that rendition? There's a reason why, and that can take an hour to explain, especially for me. So what if I want to improve a little bit? Or what if I am using other inks? I'm using mostly OEM here right now, but I'm using a partial set of colors from Precisioncolors Signature Edition. So I have a hybrid ink set right at the moment. It's imperative that I run profiles for whatever paper, regardless of who manufactures it. And in order to do that correctly, you have to make sure you do a couple of things, okay? So if you have, say, an X-Rite Color Monkey photo, or the i1 Studio, which is the new one of this. It looks just like this. It's just silver, and I think they did some internal improvements, and the software is definitely better than the current one for the Color Monkey. But if you really want to get fancy, you can get an i1 Pro 1 or 2. This is more of a professional unit. This is more of an amateur home type unit. So when you profile a paper through an instrument like this or an instrument like that, it's going to create a set of patches through the profiling software itself, the calibration software. So when it creates those color patches, they are going to not have, and this is the key word, not have a color space. They're going to be entirely raw, okay? Just like a raw file from your camera does not have a working color space. It is just like the name says, raw. So it opens it, and then you proceed to print it. In order to print this correctly so that the profile that you create is good, and I'll use that very basic term, you want it to be good, not bad, right? You need to make sure that you are printing with no color management or matching set to none. So let's go to Epson. Let's say you printed this on an Epson printer. You're going to go to color mode and choose no color management, okay? From the internal printing module from your X-Rite Color Monkey, or if you're lucky enough to have one of these, that particular software that you're using. You will be able to access your driver and then set it to no color management for Epson and color matching none, okay? That way, when you print this chart, it is actually printed raw, okay? This will ensure that the scanning will go as predicted, okay? The scanner expects to be scanning renditions from raw colors, okay? Raw printed colors, I should say. and then it will create a correction curve. Basically, it'll look at this, read it, and say, hey, that purple is off slightly in this direction, whatever direction, and I'm going to give you the correction you need in order to print that correctly as the original patch intended it to be. And the same thing with the rest of the 400 patches in this particular chart. So each one of those colors is printed raw. It'll be correct or it won't be correct. It will be off. Most likely, all of those patches are slightly off in one direction or the other. The scanner looks at it, analyzes it, compares the results of this printed result to the original value of the patch and corrects it. That way, at the end of the day, you have an ICC profile with a myriad of individual corrections for each one of those 400 color patches. Yes, it is that intricate. Imagine one with 1,600 patches. That's what I normally use. So the accuracy of the ICC profile you create depends on the fact that you printed it correctly to begin with. Now, be aware that if you don't have any of these instruments here and you are printing charts from a particular profile vendor out there, including myself, you need to print them correctly. Not only do you need to print them correctly, but you need to open them correctly, because most editing applications will take that raw image and apply a color space to it, and that renders them useless at that point. Okay, so Photoshop will do that. Lightroom may or may not do that. Qimage does not. Qimage has a built-in utility that is specifically made to open profile charts and print them correctly. It is your job to then make sure the driver is not using any kind of color management whatsoever. Again, on Epson it's no color management. On Canon it's color/intensity manual adjustment, matching, none. Now on a Mac, that's a different story. Okay, so I'm not a Mac user, so I cannot tell you what you need to do in that case, because neither application can be controlling color. That's going to be a tricky thing to do on a Mac. Anyway, so once you print this, now you can be confident that when you scan it, the scanner is going to see the actual values the printer created from those raw color patches. And that's the whole key. In order for that profile to then make sense afterwards, it has to have been created correctly. So somebody had an example of what appeared to be a Color Monkey Photo or i1 Studio color patch set. It is an entirely different format. It's not like this at all. But they were doing it on canvas, and so they were getting a different color in one of the patches, and they were worried that it didn't look like the one printed on glossy or luster paper. Well, make sure that the color matching is set to off or the color management is set to none on your printer, and don't really worry about the rendition. Again, the way your printer prints raw colors without color management might shock you the way they actually look. If you were to create a magenta document, pure magenta in Photoshop, and then print it with no color management, it would not come out magenta. Okay, it would come out more on the red side. Okay, the only way it's going to come out magenta is if you use color management, because magenta ink is not like optical magenta. Oh, shocker, right? Yes, that's the truth. So the way magenta is actually created is by compositing magenta and cyan ink. Yes, a little bit like that. And that will create a correct visual rendition of true magenta. It is amazing the way printers work. So keep that in mind. Make sure that when you are printing these charts, if you already own one of these pieces of hardware, you must set your driver to no color management. Absolutely, you must. Okay, otherwise your resulting profile is going to be incorrect. Okay, and if you're downloading charts from someone, make sure that you open them in an application that will not impart or force upon it its own internal working color space. Like I said, Qimage Ultimate and Qimage One will not do that. Also, I provide you with a free application that you can download from my profile ordering site that allows you to just simply open the charts and print them. All you have to worry about is make sure that the driver is not controlling color. and then print them, and that way the original charts will not be altered by changing its internal color space, which in this case is none. Okay, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy profiling, happy printing. Bye-bye, everybody.